the echoes of Hollow Hill. The town of Coldwater had always been a quiet, sleepy place, tucked away in the shadow of Hollow Hill. The hill was a towering presence, covered in dense woods that were nearly impenetrable, even in daylight. The townspeople avoided it, passing down stories of strange happenings and eerie sounds that echoed from its depths. No one went there willingly, and those who did never returned the same. Anna Grayson had heard the stories all her life. As a child, she had been warned to stay away from Hollow Hill, and she had always obeyed. But now, at 25, with a failed engagement and a dead-end job, she found herself drawn to the hill in a way she couldn't explain. It was as if it called to her, whispering promises of something she couldn't quite grasp. It was late autumn when Anna finally gave in to the call. The day was overcast, the sky heavy with clouds that threatened rain. She wrapped herself in a thick coat and set out, determined to see what lay beyond the tangled trees. The townspeople watched her go, shaking their heads in disapproval, but no one tried to stop her. The path leading up the hill was overgrown and barely visible, a narrow trail winding through the dense underbrush. The air grew colder as she climbed, the trees closing in around her, blocking out what little light filtered through the clouds. The silence was oppressive, broken only by the sound of her footsteps crunching on the fallen leaves. As she climbed higher, the feeling of being watched grew stronger. She kept glancing over her shoulder, expecting to see someone, or something, following her, but the path remained empty. The wind whispered through the trees, carrying with it a faint, haunting melody that made her shiver. Finally, after what felt like hours, Anna reached the top of the hill. The trees thinned, revealing a clearing dominated by a massive, ancient oak. Its twisted branches reached toward the sky like skeletal fingers, and at its base was a dark, yawning cave. The entrance was overgrown with vines, but the darkness beyond seemed to pulse with a life of its own. Anna hesitated, her heart pounding in her chest. Every instinct screamed at her to turn back, to flee down the hill and never return. But the call was stronger now, a deep, insistent pull that she couldn't resist. Taking a deep breath, she stepped forward, pushing aside the vines and entering the cave. The darkness swallowed her immediately. She fumbled for her flashlight, the beam cutting through the blackness to reveal rough, damp walls that seemed to close in on her. The air was thick with the smell of earth and decay, and the faint sound of dripping water echoed through the tunnel. Anna moved slowly, the beam of her flashlight guiding her deeper into the cave. The walls seemed to hum with energy, and the deeper she went, the louder the hum became, until it was a low, vibrating drone that she could feel in her bones. The melody she had heard outside grew clearer, a haunting, mournful tune that sent chills down her spine. Suddenly, the tunnel opened into a vast chamber. The ceiling was lost in darkness, and the walls were lined with strange, shimmering crystals that cast an eerie light over the room. In the center of the chamber was a pool of black water, perfectly still and reflecting the crystals above like a starless night sky. Anna approached the pool, her footsteps echoing in the vast chamber. The pull was stronger than ever, drawing her to the edge of the water. She knelt down, staring into the inky depths, her reflection distorted by the ripples that spread from the center of the pool. The melody grew louder, more urgent, and as Anna stared into the water, she saw something moving beneath the surface. A shadow, dark and indistinct, rising slowly from the depths. Her heart raced, and she tried to pull back, but she was frozen in place, unable to tear her eyes away from the shadow. The shadow took form, shaping itself into a figure. A woman, with long, flowing hair and eyes that glowed with an unnatural light. She reached out a hand, her voice merging with the melody, calling Anna's name. Anna's breath caught in her throat. The woman's face was achingly familiar, a face she had seen in old family photographs. It was her grandmother, long dead but not forgotten, and yet here she was, as real as the cold air around her. Anna, the figure whispered, her voice echoing through the chamber. You've come at last. Grandma? Anna's voice was a shaky whisper, her mind reeling. But, how? You're dead, the figure finished for her, smiling sadly. Yes, I am. But my spirit has been bound to this place, just as yours will be. Anna shook her head, backing away from the pool. No, this isn't real. It's not possible. The figure's expression darkened, the glow in her eyes intensifying. It is very real, Anna. The hill, it feeds on us, on our fears, our hopes, our memories. It draws us in and never lets us go. A woman, with long, flowing hair and eyes that glowed with an unnatural light. She reached out a hand, her voice merging with the melody, calling Anna's name. Anna's breath caught in her throat. The woman's face was achingly familiar, a face she had seen in old family photographs. It was her grandmother, long dead but not forgotten, and yet here she was, as real as the cold air around her. Anna, the figure whispered, her voice echoing through the chamber. You've come at last. Grandma? Anna's voice was a shaky whisper, her mind reeling. But, how? You're dead, the figure finished for her, smiling sadly. Yes, I am. But my spirit has been bound to this place, just as yours will be. Anna shook her head, backing away from the pool. No, this isn't real. It's not possible. The figure's expression darkened, the glow in her eyes intensifying. It is very real, Anna. The hill, it feeds on us, on our fears, our hopes, our memories. It draws us in and never lets us go. The last thing she saw before the darkness consumed her was the reflection of her own face in the water, distorted and twisted, her eyes glowing with the same unnatural light as the figure's. Then, with a final, desperate scream, she was pulled into the pool, the black water closing over her head. The next morning, the townspeople found Anna's coat and flashlight at the base of Hollow Hill. They shook their heads, murmuring to each other about how she should have known better, how no one ever came back from that place. They would never speak of it again, but the echoes of Anna's scream would linger in the air, just as the hill would continue to call out, waiting for its next victim.